Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Govs on the Go, Alumni Edition, a podcast featuring alumni from the College of Arts and Letters here at Austin Peay State University. My name is Dr. Buzz Hoon. I'm the Dean of the college. I'm also the host of the podcast. And today, I'm talking with Dr. Andrea Brown, who graduated from Austin Peay back in 1998. Welcome to the show, Dr. Brown.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, and we've got so much to talk about because you've had just a wonderful career. But I always like to start with giving everybody a life update. Where are you? What's going on?
Sure. Well, I am currently in my 5th year as Associate Director of Bands and Director of Athletic Bands at the University of Maryland in College Park. And so that's the flagship state school here in Maryland. And so I teach or I conduct the wind ensemble. I manage all the athletic bands ensembles and activities, and also teach conducting.
And you also have, I think, one of the coolest names for a dog ever, Applesauce.
I can't take credit for naming her. I adopted her when I lived in Atlanta from a shelter, actually a rescue organization that got her out of a shelter. And so, yes, she came with the name Applesauce, and it seemed too good to change.
That is awesome. Well, we're going to kind of go back into your origin story. And I always like to start at the beginning because I think that there are things that happen along our life routes that kind of shape us and make us into who we are. And you grew up in a rather small Tennessee town, Milan, Tennessee. And let's talk a little bit about, how do you think about being born and raised in a small town? How do you think that impacted you?
Well, obviously my life has changed a whole lot since then. Mm-hmm. But I honestly, I'm really glad that that's the experience that I had. A lot of my family was all around. And so it was, a big part of my life was being around family, weekly, if not more often than that, beyond just my immediate family. Obviously, it was a small school. We had a high school there in Milan, our own special school district, which is definitely the trend in West Tennessee. And so, I was with the same people, basically through my whole K through 12 career, and those, the people that I went to preschool with, or the people that I graduated high school with, and but then you definitely appreciate the community ties in a small town like that, and again, how people can really know each other and care for each other. And obviously, with living somewhere like I do now, which is just on the outskirts of DC, we're much close. Like proximity of your neighbors is a lot closer, from one to the next. But it's definitely a different situation as to trying to find that community.
So, how did music get introduced into your life, and when did you realize it was so prominent? It was going to be an important part.
Well, my grandmother was a church pianist and organist, and I didn't grow up near my grandmother, but it was always something that was very, well known in my family that, she was a very active musician. And so a part of that side of the family was definitely some encouragement I started piano lessons when I was in 2nd grade. And I had a wonderful, wonderful piano teacher who's very influential. And then not long after, I got involved with, because in Milan, we didn't have really kind of the options for music in our schools was fairly limited. We had general music, and then it wasn't until you got into middle school where you were able to take band, and band was really the only option. It wasn't like choir and band and orchestra and all these things. It was just band. And of course I was really excited to join the band. And so I had been in the church choir, like the children's choir, and then got involved with and started in band in 6th grade. As weird as this might sound, but I knew by 8th grade that I wanted to be a music teacher. At the time, I really did think I wanted to be a band director. Now that changed as I kind of went through my educational path. But in 8th grade, I had a because I lived in a small town. There weren't a lot of students that played the same instrument as I did that were ahead of me in school. And so the band director in the town asked if I would be interested in marching with the high school band when I was in 8th grade. And that was just a total life-changing experience. And so that was that, as I had that experience in my 8th grade year, that I don't remember like what time of year it was, but I definitely remember being 8th grade and thinking, I really want to be a band director. And somehow here I am.
Yeah, that's such a wonderful story. And I was going to ask you about what kind of things you did in high school. And I was going to, with the idea that hopefully you had a marching band connection.
Oh, yes. Yes. Well, in the community, it's probably a little different now, but in West Tennessee, this marching band happens a lot of the school year because you have it in the fall with football, of course. And in my hometown, football was a very strong. It was a very good team, especially for the size. And then there was also in West Tennessee, there is the spring parade and festival season. So I don't know if you have experienced this yet in being in Clarksville, but in West Tennessee, every little town has some kind of festival. Okay. And the school bands in the area, it's not the same. It's not a halftime show like football, but they set up parade blocks, and it's still a big source of pride. There's definitely competition as far as precision and all of those things. And so, especially when I was in school, that was still a big deal. And, your middle school band marched in the parades. And so I got started in marching band when I was in 6th grade.
Okay. Well, and so you decide you're going to go to college, and we're very fortunate. We're glad that you chose Austin Peay. Tell us how you made that decision, and were you a music ed as soon as you came in the door?
Sure. Austin Peay was definitely a known entity to me because of a couple of reasons. There were a couple of really good musicians from my high school that had gone there that were just a couple of years, like maybe 3 or 4 years in front of me, that had gone to school at Austin Peay. So that's kind of what put it on my radar. And then Bob Lee, who was the director of bands at the time, was fantastic recruiter and was definitely out in different band rooms visiting folks. And he managed, in that the couple of years kind of before I got there and not long after that, whether, he was managing his scholarship money really well, but he was able to recruit and attract a lot of all-state players. And so it was definitely a place that was, it just fits it's for a person, because I was a first generation college student. No one in my family had been to college before this. And so we didn't, honestly, we didn't really know what we were doing with the whole process. And I had gone to audition in different places, but Austin Peay, it made the most sense financially. I got a tremendous scholarship because I was valedictorian. So I had the academic scholarship as well as my music scholarship. And so it was just, financially it was great. And I knew, these other, people that I respected had gone to school there. There were other people that I knew from all-state band and orchestra that were coming to Austin Peay. And so it was just it made, the most sense. And so that's how I got to Austin Peay.
So do you remember back when you first came to Austin Peay, how did you get involved? What do you remember? Were you in the marching band right off the bat? Did you come for the right at the end of summer and right at the beginning of the semester?
Well, at that time, and I would imagine it's similar, your scholarship was tied to participation in marching band. And so it was a known entity that, you were going to be in marching band. That previous summer, I had actually marched with a drum and bugle corps. So I had been traveling all summer and marching with a group. And then, which there were several people from Austin Peay that were doing that as well. And so, we finished the season with the drum and bugle corps, and we had a little bit of, a few days off, and then we had to report for band camp at Austin Peay because we start, the several days before. And this is anywhere, as much as I've done marching band at various colleges and universities, but I wish everybody, had the opportunity to be a part of a college marching band, because it truly is, because you get to campus early, you get to meet all these people that you have, something in common with, and you kind of you form immediate bonds and find friends that you're going to have for the rest of your life through college marching band. And so, again, that was I didn't really have the option of not doing it, but it wasn't really something that I've thought about not doing. And so, with that, you've met all these people even before the first day of class that you're going to see day in and day out and spend a lot of time with.
And my daughter was part of the marching band in high school, and I always like to tell people about how important that social aspect of it is. That for a young person, that it's a good way for them to find out other people that have similar interest. Did you find other people that you became fast friends with?
Oh yeah, and then and of course it was a lot of folks that were doing it because of it was tied to our scholarships. There was a lot of folks that were music majors, so that's not always the case everywhere you go. But as at Austin Peay, it was a lot of music majors, and so as people that you were in, a lot of your classes with, you were in the music building with them all day. You went to dinner, you went to lunch with them, or and then you're in the various, Sigma Alpha Iota or Phi Mu Alpha, the women's and music and men's music fraternities. And, there's just a lot of connections there with all those folks. And so it's definitely a family, even beyond the marching band, just in the School of Music, because everybody knew each other.
Well, let's talk about some of the professors that you remember that you had during the time that were impactful on your career.
Several of them are still there, which is very cool.
Wow.
They were still there when I was teaching there, and then it just, it's interesting. It kind of tells you, I always think that it tells you about how special and unique a place that the Austin Peay, I don't know, like greater. I'm sure the whole university is like this to some extent, but my whole world was, the music building, the music department. And, a lot of the folks, my favorite folks are still there. So, I mean, some of them are retired now, but, obviously Mr. Lee, who unfortunately is no longer with us, he was everybody's like favorite grandpa, but could be, stern when he needed to as well. And which folks that definitely remember that knew him, he smoked a pipe, and he had just the most delicious smelling tobacco. And his office, he could easily access outside door. And so the hallway from the outside door to his office, you could tell when he was there, because, it would just kind of follow him. And so it was just like, oh, Mr. Lee is here, and there's times like it's a mental thing. So it's when I go back to visit and go in the building, there's still like, I know it doesn't smell like that anymore, but my brain, it wants to bring that smell back.
Yeah.
Because he had been in that office, since the building was created. So there's that one. And again, everybody that was in school with me would definitely can relate to that story. I was so fortunate in that I was able to be a part of so many different ensembles. So I mean, I was in the choir and chamber singers with Dr. George. I was able to play in the jazz band with Richard Steffen on piano, and David Steinquest was taught jazz combo. It was definitely my weakest skill set, but somehow or another he allowed me to hang in there. And then I had wonderful experiences with woodwind quintet with Lisa Walnick, and then my piano teacher was Ann Glass, who I'm not sure if she's retired yet, but probably, but I know she's still in Clarksville, and was such and Jeff Wood, who's and Silverberg, just people that because you were in the building with these people so much, and so if I have a chance to, if I'm back there, I always try to say hi. There's some folks, Thomas King, who was the advisor for Phi Mu Alpha for a long time before he retired. I've still stay in contact with him, even though they're now in Indiana. It's a special place as far as that goes, and again, the longevity of the faculty is really pretty impressive, that folks, decide to spend their whole career there.
Yeah, it's quite a legacy of success for people. And I am impressed with all of them as well. And I every once in a while, when I can share a story, when they can share some time, and I ask them, like, for instance, I remember I spoke to the Mabrys about you, and they said, well, she was a horn player, I think, and but she also sang in the choir. Mr. Mabry said, so I do, you're fondly remembered by the faculty here as well.
Yes, and of course, when I taught there, it was only, I guess, about maybe 5 or 6 years after I had been in school there, and so and so almost all of them were still there at that time, and so that I think that just kind of helped to strengthen those ties, and so there's definitely folks that I stay in touch with.
So let's talk a little bit about your career. After you left here, you went and to UNC Greensboro, and then you worked on your master's degree, and then afterwards you became a teacher and started at different places. Were you trying to explore, trying to just the United States?
No, as can happen with this, it usually, or my situation, it was relationship based, so it's so trying to be near people that you want to be near, and so it was trying to find jobs in the same place, especially when it's another musician, is a tough situation. So sure. So that's what led me to Milwaukee, which was, I was definitely a fish out of water. I have never lived in the North, for sure. And so the whole, the climate, all the things that was, and I was living in the suburbs, and I taught in the suburbs, but on the opposite end of Milwaukee. So I had to drive through the city, basically every day. And so that was an experience. And then that was middle school. And I had some wonderful colleagues, but I definitely realized, which is a good thing, is that middle school was not exactly the level that was my was exactly where it was my best fit, and so then situation changed, and ended up moving to Texas, and got a job as an assistant director at McKinney North High School, which was a new school at the time, and then that job, of course, when you're a music teacher, and especially in the band world, especially if you're not from Texas, you always hear about all the, the famous Texas bands and how wonderful it is to teach. It's basically like the land of milk and honey for bands when you're going through school. And so, it was definitely a great experience. But the job came up when Mr. Lee retired, and so and he had been the sole band director for years and years and years, and thankfully and wisely, Austin P decided to break that position up and hire 2 people, and I didn't really think I would be considered, but I put my materials in for the assistant director at Austin P. And so it was kind of a surprise, but I ended up being offered the job. And so I only ended up teaching high school that 1 year, and I accepted the job at Austin P.
Was that at all weird coming back and having all, working with your former professors?
Oh yeah. But which, I mean, the good thing is I just enjoyed them so much,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it might have been harder for them, for some of them, because it was hard for them to see me as not a student.
Right.
And so, and then I would feel that sometimes, and there would be, but because they respected me as a student, it wasn't, it wasn't that aspect. It was just kind of sometimes maybe just forgetting that I wasn't a student anymore. But it was always, I just always had such a great experience with them. It wasn't really a problem, but at all, but it was just that adjusting that now we're colleagues.
And then you decided to continue your education again.
Yes. I really enjoyed, my time at Austin P. And I was, very, I guess I felt very fortunate that because when you're in the teaching in the collegiate world, especially in our positions, it's not like you get to pick exactly where you're going to live. Sometimes you have to travel to the job. Sorry. So I felt really fortunate that I had gotten this college teaching job so close to home, right? So I was like only and see all my folks. My sister was living in Nashville, those kind of things, and so I was enjoying things. And then my teacher from UNCG began to make the push of like, you need to go back to school. You need to go back to school. It's time to get your doctorate, and yeah. So it was and so that's some different things came into play, and I was fortunate to be able to make that opportunity happen.
Well, and it was the right move for you, obviously. Yeah, and that's what's so great about that is that there are people along the way that are looking out for what's best for you, and sometimes you don't even know that, but you're wise enough at least to take their advice and direction at different times.
Definitely, because he definitely pushed me out of my comfort zone to make that happen. So
after you left here, you start this wonderful route where you're getting opportunities in higher ed to work at different positions, and some rather challenging positions. I'll put, we'll talk a little bit about that, but along the way, that I thought was really sort of impressive in your achievements is that, you were and have been a longtime supporter and proponent of both inclusion and equity issues, especially in the music profession. And I think at times it's easier for someone that when they have their own successes to kind of keep their head low and keep out of the, because they've made it, but you were somebody that was an advocate, as somebody that was willing to be a speaker. And I'm just kind of wondering, about your motivation, why you decided to speak out, especially on women's issues.
Well, it's fortunately things are moving in a positive direction, and I feel like we've got some momentum with that. But as I got more, especially into the kind of got past schooling and was out, being in the profession, more and more, it started to become more obvious that there were certain challenges that unfortunately that were related to gender, just because of just how the systems were created. Mm-hmm. And so I just some experiences that I had, and again, maybe a little bit of just of fortunately having a great network of folks that were supportive of me as well, that I had that it I felt it was worth it, that I wanted women to have a better opportunity of moving through the profession than some of the aspects that I had to deal with. And so, and that, because the only way that you can, really create change is to bring attention to the issues.
That's
and
right.
then hopefully, find some common ground with folks to create some solutions. And, it's not going to change overnight by any means, but I think, just bringing awareness to certain situations and just the way we say things, the way things are created, just the way how the system kind of works, or just the busyness of our profession, about how that can be really challenging for women that have are trying to figure out how to do what they want to do professionally, but also want to experience all the other parts of life as well. And so so that was just important to me to try to help others have an easier path than some of the challenges that I had.
Another thing that is in your list of achievements, which is really impressive, is your longtime association with the Drum and Bugle Corps. And you've been in kept involvement with that for almost 20 years, right?
Yes. I marched when I was eligible, because it's a certain age range where you can do that, which is a good thing. And then it was something that I really enjoyed. I think really and truly the aspect of the activity, it's not so much that it's marching band, but it's one of the only things that I've encountered in my life where everyone is there focused on the same thing, and they're working toward this goal of perfection 24/7. For X amount of weeks, this is what we're all doing. We're moving together in this process. And, not even your very best professional symphony orchestras, those folks, they're watching the clock. When rehearsal's over, they're done, they're going home, pick up their kids at school, all these other things. But when you're in the midst of the summer of Drum and Bugle Corps, again, the competitions, that, all of that's kind of driving this, but everyone in all of these groups, they're all working together toward one goal. And they literally, like, truly are eating, sleeping, all doing, moving together to make this happen.
So you've been at Georgia Tech, you've been at University of Michigan, and now you're at University of Maryland. And along the way, I'm sure that you have had challenges and things, stories that you could share, that you would say to a young Andrea Brown, that say, you're going to have this happen, and believe it or not, you're going to survive. What kind of stories would you share with a young Andrea that you'd say, this happened along the way and we did just fine?
Well, I think some of it is just thinking about how I really truly could, when I was in high school, even though I was thinking I wanted to be a band director, it never in my wildest dreams did I think that I would be doing this at these schools.
Yeah.
To have, even to have gotten hired at Austin P, right? And, that's kind of helped me get my foot in the door. And then to be at Georgia Tech and learn so much there. And then to have the opportunity from there to go to the University of Michigan and to spend, 5 years worth of Saturdays in the big house, that's get paid to be there, and just all of the lore that goes along with that, even if when I was there, the football wasn't all that great. But while one of the kind of the things that I always keep with me, just because, we just passed the anniversary of it, actually, March 8th was the day. But when I was at Michigan, I was the director of the men's basketball band. And so that meant that I traveled with the team and the pep band when we went to go to the postseason tournaments. And so in 2017, we were headed to the Big Ten tournament, actually here in Washington, D.C. And it was a really, really, really windy day, like wind gusts of like up to 80 miles per hour. And there, unbeknownst to the pilots, there had been some damage done to the plane. And so when we the American pilots went against rules of procedure and actually aborted the takeoff. But when that happened, because we were at a regional airport, the runway wasn't long enough to stop when the plane was going at takeoff speed. And so we actually didn't get all the wheels off the ground, but we didn't stop on the runway either. And so the plane crashed into kind of a big, I guess you could call it a really kind of a really large ditch, if you will. Kind of the nose of the plane hit that, and we all had to I hope it never happens again, but I had to evacuate off the wing of an airplane.
That's quite a story.
Yes, and then it was it was, we can call it various things, but with being also being responsible for all the students that were on that plane and making sure that they got off safely and everybody was okay, and then of course having to figure out how the next day we were going to get all those students actually to Washington D.C. to be there for the team.
So my next thing that I wanted to ask, because I think that what you do with the marching band, all marching band people do this, is you bring so much joy to so many people. And you've had just some wonderful experiences where I see that you've traveled not only across the United States, you've had a chance to travel internationally, across the world. So this is sort of a general question about the joy that you get as a director, that you do have a lot of responsibilities and challenges, but there's a lot of joy that you get from this job too, I'm sure.
Sure. I do think that some of it is because with marching band in particular, you spend so much time with the students, and so you get to know them, and you spend so much time, and not always in necessarily like instructional mode, right? When you're at the games and you're on duty, but it's not like you're actively performing all the time, or you're not actively instructing the students all the time. And so there's beautiful moments of I think, and that's what makes marching band so special. And obviously it's a lot of work, a lot of time, but you get to know the students in a different way, because you get to see them interacting with their peers, the good and the bad, the weird and the entertaining. But you get to see them interacting with their peers. You get to see, folks kind of come together to cheer on their team, winning or losing. And you're coming together, obviously, to put this show on. And in particular, in the Big Ten, the marching bands tend to do a new show for every home game, and so it's a real sense of group project every week to make sure that we're all can get to the finish line together with learning a new show for the next home game. And so it's really rewarding, just to see them grow and get so much better just from Monday to Saturday. But also, just to be able to learn more about them personally, and then, and because you tend to have them for all 4 years, see them grow from the first year to when they graduate, and just how much they change. And so all of that, it feeds your soul when you're definitely worn out and tired from the schedule.
Definitely a blessing for teachers to see that. That's right. It's a reminder of why we do this. And so my last question is always about what kind of advice you might have for an Austin Peay student. I'm sure you're modeling and you're doing this for students at the University of Maryland. You've probably been doing this for your entire career as an educator, but what kind of advice do you have to a young person that might be interested in, like you, wanting to be a marching band director?
Well, if it's if they're wanting to, get into teaching music or just be in the profession, even beyond marching band, because, unfortunately there's a side to our profession that we get typecast as, maybe not as good of musicians if we teach and interact with marching bands than only concert ensembles. And so, related to that, I would definitely say to get involved and participate in as much music as you can, like build your music portfolio as much as you can, listen to as many different kinds of music, become as familiar and be comfortable in as many kind of musical situations as possible. And that way you're going to be able to be more nimble if moving through and have more opportunities, right? If you can say, when somebody asks, can you do this? And you can say, in your mind, you might be thinking, but you've had something connected to that, and you're like, yes, and you jump in and you give it your best effort. And so I think saying yes to as much as you can, that without with taking care of yourself, right? You don't there's definitely that aspect to our profession, but getting involved with as many different aspects of music, different people, listening to people. That was definitely something that I still work on, of trying to listen more and talk less, and just taking things in. And then it's maybe more related to, again, the coming from being a female in this profession, but just really question everything, not necessarily rudely, but just question, why is this way, and is this the best way that we could be doing this? And so, and you can apply that to all kind of different things in life, but definitely our profession. And so yeah, I think if I had run across myself at that point, if I had all those things, kind of told to me in a way that I would listen, I think that I would have appreciated it.
Well, still remarkable career so far up to this point, and I am looking forward to the second half.
Well, thank you. It's been an adventure so far, and I look forward to more of that's for sure. But very grateful as well to just the wonderful experience, and the confidence and the support, and like the support that I had to build my confidence, from being somebody from a small town, a small school, not maybe the most comprehensive music opportunities, but one I was able to get involved with, and the faculty and the other students, like it's really set me up on the path that I've been on ever since.
Well, it's been great talking with you, Dr. Brown.
You too. Thank you.
And thanks for all of our viewers and listeners out there for checking out the podcast. We hope that you will continue to join us as we profile some of the outstanding alumni here in the College of Arts and Letters at Austin Peay State University. So until next time, stay safe, take care, and God bless.